Notice that this handle is sort of like round here, and then it gets sharp. So there's like a sharp line here. So I'm gonna start it from when the sharpness begins. So it's probably like more flat on the top, and then more like curved on the back. So you can actually so it kind of like is softer to like use to handle. So I'm gonna create two curves. So I'm gonna create the bottom curve, and I'm gonna create the top curve. And I'm gonna look at this shape and sort of kind of imagine how it would be if I cut it all. Um, so for the curves I'm gonna use the CV curve tool, and let's go and use like a linear curve. So what I'm gonna do is create half of that. Meaning this whole geometry is the handle. I'm gonna do half of the top part and half of the bottom part. So this is gonna be my axis of symmetry. So I'm gonna look at it like something like, let me just do a more simple shape. So that would be like maybe the top part, just a sharp face. And I'm going to do the bottom part, but the bottom part I want to do a more organic shape. So I'm just going to go ahead and start from here. So I'm going to hold down the C to like start from that point, so it snaps there. And do some like curve. So that is more of a curve. And these are going to be the same. And this should be on the same height with that one. This guy needs to be a little bit more flat. Maybe more further away. And I can press V to snap it, actually C, snap it here. So basically what I did is I created this piece. I'm going to center the pivot point. And let's say I duplicate that just to see the shape, the whole shape if I cut it. I'm going to duplicate that and -1 on the scale on Z to like just see how that would work. So maybe what I should do instead is make this more like that. I'm going to group it, center pivot, W, move it over, actually Shift D, move it over here, and -1 on the Z. So it would look something like that, and then it will modify as we go. So I don't need this, I just wanted to see how it would be as a full shape. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to create a curve. So I have this profile, and I'm going to create a curve here, like a CV curve. From here, to there. So now I have this path. I can refine it a little bit. Okay. Now, I need to position these guys on the curve. So I'm going to select it and group it. So I'm going to group that piece. You can see the group here. This group is nothing. I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to grab this and move the pivot point D, D, that. They made that difficult too. And move it all the way to that area, so I can actually select it and move it on the curve here. And I'm gonna put it here on the curve. Of course, this is like gigantic here as a shape, so I have to like scale it down. And the curve, maybe what I would do is like move the curve, because this is going to be a loft. I'm going to move it on the upper sides so I can have that run along the curve. I'll explain in a minute how this works. So I'm just making this curve, and I'm going to select this piece, this group, and slide it on the curve. Now this will start from here, but not as we see it. We have to rotate it. So we have to go and rotate this 90 degrees. So 90 degrees. So it starts from here. So can you see what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to kind of make a wireframe structure of the whole thing. So if I go to the right view, let me put this in a layer so we don't have to see them all the time, since we're working on something else. In a layer and hide them for a second. So here's the curve, the group curve, and I'm going to scale it so it's like so it actually is all this piece, and also rotate it. Now the loft means I'm going to create a network of curves that move around that path. So I'm going to duplicate this and move it up here. So notice that here this is thicker. So I'm just going to scale that more. Let me see if I'm scaling it, if I'm getting any distortion. So I'm not getting any distortion yet, so that's a good thing. So I'm going to scale it mostly on the Y, so just like something like that, so it gets like beefier at this area. Then I'm going to duplicate it. So group 10, duplicate it, W, move it, and bring that, hold down the C key and bring it over here. Now rotate that. So it has to be always following, you know, following that kind of pattern. So now group 11 R, so now I'm going to just scale it down and flatten it more. So do you see what I'm doing? I'm just like creating a network of curves. So I need a couple of more, so select this final group, this group 11, duplicate it, go out over here, and scale it down. Now group 12, duplicate that, move it here. Here we need probably a bunch of them because there's a you know, a very sharp curve that's happening. So now also the reason I made two curves is I'm going to explain why I made two, one sharp and one soft. And that's the final one all the way to the end. That is the smallest piece. Okay, now let's look at this. So we have all this is half of the handle made with profile curves. Now what I need to do is like tell Maya to connect all these together and give me a nice industrial shape. This, you can tell how many things you can create, creatures and like cars, industrial objects and all that. That's like a very like popular technique. Plus, I'm doing it that way so I don't create NURBs. I'm creating friendly shapes like polygons that we can actually work. And animators like polygons. So I'm gonna now the way the loft works is I use this line just as a guide. I didn't use it as we're not gonna use it to like generate the geometry. So I'm gonna start with the flat pieces, but you have to always start from this one to the last. You can't just choose this one on the way. So 1, 2, 3. I'm holding down the shift, including all these. 4, 5, and 6. So now I'm going to go to Surfaces, Loft, open that, and reset the settings. Usually what you see here is this. It says, okay, loft them, make a NURBS object, do something like that, and we're good. But I don't want to do that. I want to say I want a polygon object. I want quads, and I want general tessellation. So those are the options I want right now. I can do a linear. Let's look at the linear first. So I'm going to do a linear because those are straight lines too, so I'm making a linear. And then you get this really not very cool shape. The shape follows exactly what I did on the curve. It follows exactly the same points. But you have to go, once you finish the loft, and that's good that I'm doing a video so you guys can have the settings here. So, you go to the NURBS tessellation of this object and increase the U and the V number. The U number is this number. We don't need to increase that. That's why we made this linear curve, because we didn't want that many points. Let's increase the V number. Now, if I increase the V number, nothing really happens. So that linear didn't give me a good... So I wanted that to start curving. So forget the linear. Let's go and try the cubic. Apply. Oh, I have to select them again. So I have to select everything in order. Okay, so I selected everything in order. This time I'm doing a cubic with the same settings. Apply. Now if I go to NURBS tessellate and increase the V number, now I'm getting what I want, exactly the shape I want. And now I'm noticing, this should be thinner here, but don't worry, we're gonna figure that out in a minute. I'm just gonna make sure that the V number is about 24 maybe, 24, 30. 24 is a good number here. Now I'm gonna do the same thing with this, with the lower part of the handle. So this one, this one, this one, and this one. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do a loft. Use the same exact numbers, apply. Now this one came out really rough because I want it to be very soft. I would add more U number. So I'm gonna add maybe 8 or 9 is enough, or 10. I'll do 10. And the V number should be the same exact as the previous one because that's on the path, 24. Notice how these two pieces have created an industrial object that is like, that you see industrial designers make that stuff, with like very sharp areas, very soft areas. It's a combination of two shapes, and that you can get the best sort of looking object. Now, that comes along with some sort of problems. The problems are not that, they're not that crazy. This is 24. This is 24. Yeah. So we have to see if they match. So this here matches almost. We have to like move things around. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna start matching it, because we definitely want these things to combine. But notice what I can do now is, this is the cool thing. I can go and select those groups of curves, like this one for instance, and say, oh, make this smaller. That's the cool part. because you can say, okay, I want this to be smaller. So at the end becomes, or so then I can refine the shape more. Of course, we're going to have some issues, but we're going to fix them in a minute. So I can go group 11, or I can go to the group 10 and make this guy like more like larger here. So you can see how much additional things you can do right now to improve the shape. So that's like, okay, now I'm gonna start stitching it. I'm gonna go and hide the curves for a second. I can go and say show NURBS curves, do not show them. I'm gonna also say do not show this image in the background, so I can actually that doesn't matter. I can just leave that. So I have these two pieces. So obviously these two pieces need to be combined. So mesh, combine. That's the first thing to do. Now I'm doing exactly the same thing I did before, going slowly and merging all these vertices because they have to merge. So the vertices are supposed to be here. I'm going to select, it says 2, and I'm going to say merge. There is some stitching work here, but to sculpt this like so perfectly would take a longer time. So that's why we're using this technique. So I'm going to go slowly around and review this and keep merging these. They're not that many, they're just 24 along this. Now this is going to create some distortion because these are further apart. I'm pressing the G, clicking the G, G for repeat previous command. Now this one I should just, this is a little bit of a mess here, so I'll go back and fix this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these vertices, go to the right view, and rotate them. So select these vertices and rotate them a little bit, and manually bring them where they should be. Plus these here are a little bit of a mess. I'm going to select these and move them down. So I want to fix the edge flow here a little bit. So those need to be. So that is more of a stitching things that are a little bit off. And these up here, I can also rotate them. Oh, these also here, I'm just gonna bring them up. These other ones need to be rotated too. I can also do the edge. You can double click the edge, it's even easier, faster. So now I'm having a, they look okay. I'm just, what you could do is just get the edge flow a little bit better on those areas. you can actually, kind of, the edge flow is like, it's very important for, even though you don't see it when you press 3, you don't see much of it, but it's good to like kind of fix it. So it would take some time for me to fix the edge flow, but overall I'm good. I just need to go back on the perspective and stitch the last ones, then mirror the object, and we have a handle. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and grab these. I want to make sure that these are stitched, so I'm gonna say merge. So these two. And then I have these. So now everything is probably done. Now I'll press 3, and here's my shape. I'm gonna go to the right view and fine-tune an area here that it looks a little bit awkward. So this one is not supposed to be that intense. I just need to kind of move it manually and rotate this possibly like that, so there's a better edge flow. So here we could actually say component, rotate. See here I can go and scale along the component, so I can actually, it doesn't work. Let's see if we can move it. So these need to be manually fixed. So here's a handle. I want to select it, and I'm going to mirror it. One thing I want to fix is probably this this area here is a little strange, so I'm going to bring the curves back, show curves. And this area here is one of those curves is responsible for this. I need to kind of, get that. So I have the piece here. Now I'm going to sharpen this a little bit more. So notice that there's like there's room for sharpening. I can get an insert edge loop, one over here, press 3, and then maybe one over here. So now I get this very nice sharp area. I'm going to select this and mirror it. So I'll go to the top view, make sure that everything is like flat on the side, and duplicate it. So this is actually, we're going to mirror it so we don't have to duplicate it. Select it, modify, center pivot, go mesh, mirror geometry. So we need -x, apply, and merge border vertices. And the bottom part it wasn't perfectly lined up, so what we need to do is like, stitch that together. But for now, I'm just gonna leave it there and bring the other layers also. Select this piece, center pivot, W, and Bring it, modify, align objects. And if it's too thick, you know, you can always reduce the size. Maybe I just made it, I can actually scale it down. So that's I'm gonna go ahead. The stitching job here, you don't need to worry about. It's just you have to go and select vertices and start putting them together, merging them. So that's it for this handle.